Okay, so after a bit of a hiatus learning this mimer, let's just get right back into it and give some frame of reference of where we're up to in this mimer. The Rebbe discusses how das means the ability to picture how Hashem is not just to understand that Hashem is creating the world, but to picture it vividly, and to, as Rebbe says, you should be able to see Hashem in everything. And when a person has that kind of experience, the world is a luminous world. The world is a world that shines. It's a shining, luminous world. That's what the Rebbe says das means. And we said that das is something that tzaddikim have naturally. Their neshamas come from a higher world, and they're called the seed of man. Just like a man that has das, a man has a different kind of intelligence than an animal. So too a tzaddik has a higher kind of appreciation for Hashem's truth, and Hashem's truth is more vivid and more real to him than we can imagine. The same way that the physical world is real and real to us in a way that's beyond the way it's real to an animal, that's how real the truth of Hashem is to a tzaddik. And that's why the Hebrew word for man has the same letters as the word for mo'od. Mo'od means to be extreme. And the tzaddik has this extreme devotion to Hashem. Why is he so extreme? Because he sees the reality. But the second section of Shema doesn't have the word mo'od. The first section of Shema says love Hashem in an extreme way. Mo'od, be extreme about it. Why is the first section of Shema so extreme? Because the first section of Shema talks about where there is this vivid perception of godliness. And therefore there is this extreme devotion to Hashem, where you see everything's clear, so then you go all the way. The second section of Shema begins with if you will listen to Hashem, it's not so clear, not so vivid. And that's why the second section of Shema talks about reward and punishment, because when you're at the stage of the second section of Shema, you're at a distance, you need to be reminded about the consequences of your action, and you don't really go all the way because you don't feel that closeness. So the second section of Shema is more closer to our experience, to our way of connecting to Hashem, where there is understanding, there's appreciation, but there's no das, there's no vivid sight of Hashem. Tzaddikim have this das, tzaddikim have this connection to Hashem's truth in a very palpable, tangible, vivid way. You with me so far?
No.
Okay. Let me say this in one sentence. A tzaddik appreciates the truth of Hashem as if he sees Hashem.
Okay.
And therefore, a tzaddik's service of Hashem is without any limits. Doesn't have any limits in how far he goes to serve Hashem. He goes all the way.
Okay.
Pedal to the metal. But people who don't have that vivid appreciation for Hashem, their service of Hashem is somewhat limited.
Yes.
So the second section of Shema, which talks about not seeing Hashem, but it begins with, if you shall listen, if you will listen to the mitzvahs. And Hashem says, I'll give you rain in the season. If you don't listen to the mitzvahs, there'll be the opposite. There'll be a punishment, right? That's the second section of Shema. That section of Shema, which talks about listening, which means that it's not vivid. It's not like you see it, just you hear about it. It doesn't say you should love Hashem with all your might. It doesn't say you should love Hashem all the way. Because when you're only serving Hashem based upon understanding the truth of Hashem, like something you've heard about from trusted friends, but not like something you've seen with your eyes, your service of Hashem is going to be somewhat limited. Think about like someone who's been through a business who's let's say he's heard about how great Bitcoin is, right? And he's heard this from trusted friends, and therefore he invests in Bitcoin, okay? And then he's made money in Bitcoin himself. So there's a difference between his own experience in Bitcoin and his hearing about it from trusted friends. When he saw it himself in his own life, he's now smitten by this. Hopefully he'll be successful and will stay that way. But there's a difference between hearing about something and seeing it. So the tzaddik sees the truth of Hashem, but regular souls aren't capable of that vivid experience. You with me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where we're going now is to discuss that there's actually two different kinds of das. In das itself, there are two different kinds of das. There is, in the language of Kabbalah, das tachtein and das elyon, the lower form of das and the higher form of das. In Kabbalah, there is a line that says this: where keser is counted, das is not counted. Where das is counted, keser isn't counted. We want to. Okay, keser literally means a crown. That refers to a transcendent light of Hashem. So there is a order of the spheres that we're familiar with. That there's Chochmah, there's Bina, there's Das. There's the first of three intellectual spheres, the ability to create ideas, understand them, and connect with them. And there's the emotions. When there's Chabad, when there is understanding and appreciation, that gives birth to positive feelings about Hashem. That's a regular order. That each sphera is under the other sphere. Chochmah, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura. There's another kind of order in which Das is above Chochmah and Bina. Das is in a category unto itself, and it fuels the initial Chochmah and Bina experience. What does that mean? So Chochmah means the ability to understand an idea, to create an idea. It's your first inkling into the truth of something. Right. Very good. Chochmah is the first insight into something. What does Chochmah get an insight into? How would you define, if you were to define Chochmah, what word would you use?
Spiritual.
Okay, but it's not just spiritual. There's many things which are spiritual. It's a intellectual experience. Chochmah is intellectual. Chochmah is your first insight into something. It's your first intellectual appreciation for something. Okay, it's not in spiritual things themselves. This is something which is intellectual. That's what Chochmah is. Then there is, beyond Chochmah, there is a transcendent light of Hashem, which is called Keser. Keser is called the crown. It's beyond Keser is the crown, and that's something which is higher than Chochmah. In ourselves, Keser is our power for desire, and Chochmah is our power to create ideas. Our power of desire is what fuels our intelligence. That's what the Talmud says. You should always study in a place that you want to study, and always study the things you want to study. In general, I mean, there's exceptions to the rule, but in general, the Talmud says you should study things you want to study. Why? Because when you want to study, your mind is open. What fuels your chachma, what fuels your intelligence is your desire. If you want to learn, you'll learn. If you don't want to learn, you're not going to learn. So keser fuels chachma. Desire fuels chachma. You with me so far?
We have a question about keser.
Uh-oh.
And I've always been curious about this. On Shabbos, when we do Naki Shach in our Substitute Kodesh, they don't do that. They do keser. Why is that? They don't do that one. They drop that one prayer, that one section. They do the keser. What is that about?
It's a great question. If I remember correctly, I'm not sure if this is correct or not, but I think that on Shabbos.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, how come on Shabbos we say keser, not Kedusha? And I'm not sure the answer. I think, I think the answer has something to do with the fact that on Shabbos we're given this different kind of love for Hashem, which is beyond logic and reason. We have an extra neshama on Shabbos. We have access to the desire of our neshama to be close to Hashem beyond logic and reason, and therefore on the prayer of Musaf, which is the fourth prayer, which is the extra prayer of the day, Musaf, that's the extra prayer which is beyond the regular prayers. We're able to access that kind of love for Hashem beyond logic and reason. Therefore, we give Hashem a keser. But I'm just shooting in the dark here. I don't remember. You remember? Go ahead.
We say it also.
Right.
We cover our fulfillment because we're being elevated at this level of being crowned. So we can't cover our fulfillment because that's also a crown. So we don't want to. Right? Isn't that why we cover our fulfillment?
there's certainly Rosh Chodesh also a revelation of the deeper part of the neshama of the Kesser, the neshama of Yechida. But I think that's connected with this. Either way, in Kesser itself, there are different levels. Let's talk about Hashem's Kesser, not about our Kesser for a second. Hashem's Kesser, Hashem. Until now we're discussing our Kesser, our love, the power of desire. Now I'll talk about Hashem's power of desire. Hashem desired to create the world. Hashem desired not just to create this world, but also desired to create every world. It says in Kabbalah, all the crowns are connected to each other. Hashem's desire for the creation of this world emanates from his desire to create the world above this. And the desire to create the world above this comes from the desire to create the world above that. And then there is Kesser, there is original Kesser, Hashem's first desire to create the world. To create to all creation. Hashem's first desire to create everything. So because Hashem desired to have a home in the lowest realms, Hashem desired to have a home here. Because of that, he made all the worlds above this world. And he made this world as well. So all of the so there is a desire of Hashem to create each world. But all of the desires of Hashem to create every single individual world all emanate from Hashem's desire to have a home in this lowest world. So let's talk about the creation of the world of Bria, for example. The desire of Hashem to create Bria that comes from Hashem's desire to create the world of Atzilus, and it leads to Hashem's desire to create the world beneath that. It's like kind of like in architecture, when you want to build a home, you want to sit on your living room couch and watch a football game, eating potato chips and beer, and that's why you made a house. So because of that, you also made a bathroom, you also made a living room. But your thought about the house is Monday Night Football, potato chips and beer. That's as far as your dream goes. So all the other desires you have are all to get to that moment, to get to that place. That's where you want. So in Hashem's desire for creation, there are different parts of that desire. Desire for this world, desire for that world, and all the desires of Hashem all originate from Kesser HaKloli, the general desire of Hashem to have a home in this world. So in Atzilus, there is the desire of Hashem for the world of Atzilus. That is called Kesser. Then there is something called Pnimis HaKesser, the inner dimension of Kesser. The inner dimension of Kesser is not about Hashem's desire for a world per se. Rather, it's about that which is above creation. It's about the truth of Hashem, which is beyond not just creation of this world, but the creation of the world of Atzilus. It's not only the inner dimension of Kesser is not Hashem's desire for a world. It's not about desire. The inner dimension of Kesser is not about desire. The inner dimension of Kesser is about the truth of Hashem. It's about his truth, his personal truth, not about Hashem's desire for something outside of himself. The inner dimension of Kesser, the inner part of the crown, is Hashem's truth into himself. So when we talk about creation of the world of Atzilus, the world of Atzilus itself is a place which in the world of Atzilus, it's revealed how there's nothing besides Hashem. That's the weather. The weather in Atzilus is always the same. The climate is the same. The atmosphere is the same. It's always, all there is Hashem. But it's still like a king in his personal chambers, where there's a chamber where all there is the king. There's still, it's still called the world. There's still something there. Hashem's desire for a world called Atzilus is desire for something outside of himself. The inner dimension of Kesser is about the truth of Hashem, about Hashem's essence, not about anything other than himself. So there is Hashem himself, then there's a desire of Hashem for something outside of himself. You with me or no?
Yeah.
There's Hashem. The inner dimension of Kesser is about Hashem himself, about Hashem's truth. And that's the real meaning of nothing besides Hashem, because there's no desire for anything else, not even a desire for a chamber where all there is the king. There's just himself, not no chambers, just him. And then there is the desire of Hashem for something else, whether it's the world of Atzilus, whether it's this world, it's the desire of Hashem for something other than God, other than himself. So the external element of Kesser, which is Hashem's desire for creation, that is what fuels the godly light in the sphere of Chokhmah and Bina in the world of Atzilus. Hashem's desire for the world of Atzilus is what fuels the creation of Atzilus.
What's that seals?
That's the first and highest world. That's like a king being in his personal chambers. All there is the king.
They just don't relate to it.
None of us relate to it, but the analogy that Rebbe gives about this world is a king who is in his personal chambers. All there is the king, versus a king who is in his throne room. When he's in his throne room, there are many people there around who are all subservient to the king, they're all devoted to the king, but it's a throne room. There's many, many people there in the throne room. So the world of there's a world lower than Atzilus, which is it's called a throne room. And the world of Atzilus is like the king in his personal chambers, and all there is, the only one that's there is the king. So the world of Atzilus is called the world of unity, where the world where all there is the truth of Hashem. And there's experience there's nothing besides Hashem. But it's still called a world. It's still called a thing. It's not the real truth of Hashem where there is no world. It's not the real truth of Hashem that there's nothing else but Him. There is a chamber there. There is an experience there. There is someone that there are souls there that experience that. Even the world of Atzilus, there are even as the world of Atzilus, there are souls there, but they're souls at the level of the chamber. Whatever, getting confusing over here, but make things very simple. The world of Atzilus is a place where Hashem's truth is revealed, but then there is Hashem Himself, where there's no places. That's the inner dimension of Keser. The inner dimension of Keser is Hashem's truth as it is in Himself, and there is Hashem's desire for other things outside of Himself. The Hebrew word for desire is, I think we learned in this mimer, desire comes in the same letters as the word tzino, which means pipe, which means filter. There is just like when you desire something, you're drawn to something, you connect to something outside of yourself. Your desire for something connects you to something outside of yourself. So too, your desire for something connects you to something outside of yourself. So too, Hashem's desire causes His light to be contracted and connected to something that's not at that pristine level of the truth of Hashem's innermost truth, Hashem's own truth. Hashem's desire causes His light to be diminished. So ordinarily, Keser is a limitation. Keser is where Hashem's light is contracted to produce the world of Atzilus. Keser is where Hashem's light is being lessened so that there could be Chacham and Bina. Just like we said, the analogy I gave before, like when you want to study something, so then your mind is open to study it. Your Keser, your desire fuels your wisdom. So too, by the Eibusher, so to speak, his desire for the world of Atzilus is the source of the Chacham and Bina of Atzilus. And Chacham and Bina, the intelligence, just like in our human being, intelligence fuels emotions. So the intelligence of Atzilus fuels the emotions of Atzilus. Hashem's kindness, Hashem's judgment are fueled by Hashem's Chacham and Bina, which is a source for the world beneath that, and Malchus, until it reaches this world. So it says in Kabbalah, Kisha Keser Nimne Ein Adas Nimne. When Keser could be counted as one of the spheres of Atzilus, Keser could be included as being part of Atzilus. If we're talking about the external part of Keser, the desire of Hashem for creation, that could be classified as part of the world of Atzilus, although it's a transcendent light, although it's higher than Chachma. But since it's a source for a Chachma, it could be in the same class of Atzilus, it could be in the same category of Atzilus. But the innermost part of Keser, Hashem's truth as it is in Himself, not His desire for creation, when Hashem as He is in Himself, that's not part of Atzilus. That's a whole different. That's way beyond Atzilus. So there is a faculty of Das. That Das is a connector. Das is a bridge. Das brings the understanding of my mind to my heart. Das is a bridge between my mind and heart. So when I want to take something that I understood already and I want to bring it into my heart, so I connect with it, I think about its truth, I think about how real it is, and it brings it to me to have that generates feelings about that thing I understood. Das stands between intellect and emotions. That's a general place of Das. There is another place of Das, and there's another kind of Das called a higher kind of Das, and that's Das Elyon. What Das Elyon mean? Das Elyon means there's Das Tachna, there's Das Elyon. There's lower kind of Das and a higher kind of Das. The lower kind of Das, Dr. Bresson, you had your coffee yet?
Okay.
You know how much better you'll be with the coffee?
Yeah, I'm going to the bathroom.
Oh, yes.
What did you mean? I'm not understanding this. Das stands between intellect and emotion.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Very simply. So it's easy. When you understand something and you connect with it, not just you understand it intellectually, you connect with it at a personal level, that brings you to have feelings for it. If I would tell you something is really good, and that doesn't mean you have emotional attachment to it, but if you really thought about it and you thought about it deeply, that would already generate positive feelings for it. For example, the book on Tanya. Someone told you it's a good book, right? Then you took to someone else, that's also a good book. Then someone explained to you why it's a good book. This book will answer your questions on Yiddishkeit. This book will create a relationship with you and Hashem. Now you thought about it in a way that's personal and meaningful. And that made you go out and actually go buy that book, right? That's the difference between something being just intellectual and something being emotional and experiential. When you, the das is what made you connect to this idea and actually sold it to you. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought
Yes.
you were going to use an example of giving tzedakah to the shul.
Okay, so there's lower kind of das and higher kind of das. What is lower kind of das? The lower kind of das in general means that this world is a reality, and the higher, what's Hashem's reality, the truth of Hashem is something which is not existent.
It's not what?
It's not real. It's not real. Our reality is a reality, and the truth of Hashem is something which is not the same kind of reality. It's a distant reality. It's not our reality. This is a yesh, this is something, and Hashem, is not the same kind of something. That's lower kind of das. You with me when the lower kind of das?
We're in the lower kind of.
We're in the lower kind of das. Even the world of Atzilus, which has a higher kind of das, they experience the truth of Hashem in the world of Atzilus, right? They're doing really good over there, right? But compared to the truth of Hashem as it is in his innermost self, in the Pnimius HaKeser, they're still in the category of the lower kind of das. You with me? Compared to us, we would call them higher kind of das, for sure. Angels, we would say, have a higher kind of das than we do, right? And souls in the throne room that I described before are certainly a higher kind of das. But still, there's still reality that they have, which is that they exist. That there's an existence there. Even the world of Atzilus still exists. Even the king's chamber still exists.
The concept of the soul to grasp is very difficult, so I don't really understand it. And in Tanya, they're talking about the soul being subdivided into 4 parts. That really threw me apart. I mean, I just didn't.
I threw it apart into 4 parts. It's scattered into 4 parts.
They subdivided the soul into 4 sections. I just.
So unfair, huh?
It's deep beyond anything I've ever taken.
Look.
I've ever studied.
There, I don't know if we visited Chicago, we get a deep appreciation of this mimer. You're from Chicago, no? Okay. The lower level of das means this world is our reality is reality, and Hashem's reality is not a reality. That is not a reality. That's not the same kind of reality. Those words can be said in many different ways. Those words have many different translations. Let's say I spoke to the Andrew that didn't learn keep Shabbos, keep kosher, and didn't put on tefillin a few months ago, right? So that he has different perspective than the one that does keep Shabbos and kosher and puts on tefillin. It's different. Your reality is different. It's a higher kind of reality. But still, it's higher. If I would compare one to the other, how much does Hashem matter to you? It matters more, right? Now, to compare it to your Zayda who's in Gan Eden, your grandfather in Gan Eden, his perspective, Hashem's truth is much more than yours, right? But he still exists. But he's still a soul. He still exists. He's still someone, right? Then let's compare his reality to the reality of Hashem looking at Hashem's truth. Hashem looking at his own truth. Hashem's truth is that I exist, and all that's beneath me is insignificant. That's not the real reality. The real reality is me, Hashem says, and all that's created by me is insignificant.
we never could understand Hashem's truth.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's at least talk about it. Let's at least discuss it. Hashem's reality is that I exist. The Lamaila Yesh, what is in heaven, what is by Hashem is real. That which is beneath him is insignificant. That's the real opinion. That's the truth. That's the truth. The truth is that everything before Hashem is like nothing. That's Elyon. So there is a chain of called the Shtalshlus. There's a chain of each sphere, how it leads to the other sphere, how each world leads to the other world, and they all integrate and they all fuel each other. When we're talking about the external part of Keser, that could be classified as part of the world of Atzilus because it's also about creation. It's Hashem's desire for creation. So therefore, there's some relationship to creation. It's still related to the lower kind of das because it's about the reality of creation. Even God's desire for creation, which precedes and is higher than creation, has some relationship to creation because it's about creation. It's about something other than godliness, about something other than himself. The external part of Keser is the external part of Hashem's Keser, which means Hashem's desire for creation, is about something other than godliness. So the external part of Keser fuels external part of Chachma, it fuels Bina and Das, and there's a chain of each thing fueling each other until it goes, and one thing fuels the other until it goes down to this world. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about, the external dimension of Keser.
So in other words, it goes from the top world to the second to then it filters out to our world.
Correct.
So all the worlds are involved.
Correct. That's what we're talking about, the external part of Keser. But then there is the inner part of Keser, Hashem's truth. Das, the Pnim, Das Elyon. Das Elyon is the perspective into Hashem's truth. Das Elyon is to see a perspective of Hashem's truth. That's what Das Elyon is. Das Elyon is not the way our reality is. Das Elyon is an insight into Hashem's reality. Understand?
But I don't understand Hashem's reality.
So Das Elyon is about revelation of Hashem's reality. That's what Das Elyon means. Das Elyon means that there's a connection to Hashem's reality. And when that revelation happens, that is not in the realm of Atzilus. That makes all that when that revelation happens to the world of Atzilus, Atzilus changes and Bria changes. There's a whole different kind of experience in the worlds beneath Atzilus and Atzilus itself. Tachtein.
What does that mean?
Tachtein means lower. Lower das and higher das.
Chachma is the initial inspiration.
Right. But we're talking about what fuels Chachma. Is Chachma being fueled by the external dimension of Keser, or is Chachma being fueled by the inner dimension of Keser? So when das, so the Kabbalah says, when das is counted, Keser isn't counted.
Yes.
1 second. If we're talking that statement, let's clue with this, and then we put Avin Shachas. That statement means like this: when the inner dimension of das is counted, then we're not talking about the way Keser is part of. We're not talking about the external part of Keser, which can be counted in Atzilus. We're talking about the higher level of das that connects to the inner dimension of Keser, and the inner dimension of Keser cannot be classified as part of Atzilus. When das is not counted, when the Seder Shtalshlus, when the chain is not being fueled by the inner dimension of Keser, and it's only being fueled by the external part of Keser, when Keser is counted, so then we're not talking about a das model where there's an insight into the inner dimension of Keser. That's the only external part of Keser. I'm not saying it in English. I'm saying it in one sentence. When the statement of Kabbalah is referring to the higher level of das, and it says, when Keser is counted, das isn't counted. When das is counted, Keser isn't counted. What that means is, there is a way Keser, the lower part of Keser, is counted as part of the chain of descent. When Keser is counted, and in that model, there is no revelation, there's no insight into the inner dimension of Keser through the inner dimension of das. And when das is counted, das gives insight, das Elyon gives insight to the inner dimension of Keser, and that can't be considered part of the chain of the worlds, because that gives insight to something which is far beyond the worlds. Okay, we continued. Yeah.
When it shows that, you see that in the
Just said.
Does one show that another without that?
Yeah.
No, is that so when it shows that, that's because it's receiving Kesser?
Yes, Primus Kesser.
Doesn't, then Kesser isn't a lower level of Kesser?
Right.
It doesn't show that.
Right. So, but that statement of Kabbalah is only referring to Das Elyon. When Das is counted, means when Das Elyon is counted, we don't count Kesser as part of Ishtalshlus. When Das isn't counted, which means when there's no revelation of Primus Kesser, because Das is a revelation of Primus Kesser, Das isn't counted, then Kesser could be counted. Kesser could be counted as part of Ishtalshlus.
It's lower.
That's an external part of Kesser.
So if you see that, it's a lower level of Kesser.
If you see Das, when Das is counted,
It's like,
Das means, and that statement of Kabbalah means the inner dimension of Kesser. It means the inner dimension of Das, the high level of Das. When the higher level of Das is present in the Shtalshlus, and it reveals in the Shtalshlus, so you can't, that inner dimension of Das connects with the inner dimension of Kesser. And therefore that part of Kesser that it's connecting to cannot be considered part of the Shtalshlus.
so you wouldn't see Kesser.
So you wouldn't count Kesser as part of Shtalshlus, because that connects to a higher part of Kesser. But if you don't have Das Elyon, it's just an external part of Kesser. So then that external part of Kesser could be counted as part of Shtalshlus.
More spheres.
Right, you see Kesser and not Das Elyon. You would say the lower level of Das, but not Das Elyon.
What's that?
That's Hashem's perspective of the truth.